not going to say anything about these preachers who threatening to whip me? Threatening to bust my head wide open? Well, I'm basically actually saying things like Jesus said, pointing out. See, he had to change that I slandered. I didn't slander anybody, folks. These are the facts. You can't slander with facts. Mr. Motley will tell you that. I believe Mr. Motley can tell us, if he wants to, he could call in tonight and tell us. He's called in and told us he was scholar. He can tell us, you don't slander with the facts. No, sir, the facts. You can put the facts in the newspaper, and nobody can do anything about it. You see, when I talk about the Bentley and the $500,000 house, you can't get me for slander because it's on the books. And you want to get on the books and look at my stuff? Go ahead. That's fine. You know what's the Bible say? Yes, caller.
Hey, how you doing, man? Hey, this is Darnell Carter's brother.
Yes.
How you been doing, man?
I'm good.
I love your teaching and all of that. But one thing I want to ask you, man, what you doing, do you think that, you point out what people, preachers, teachers, ministers, bishops are doing? Is it good for you to bring this to light?
Is it good to bring it to light?
Yeah, the way you...
Mr. Carter, the only way you're going to be able to see that these folks are leading you into darkness is for someone to point out what is right and what is wrong.
Okay, so me and you have talked before, and the public know this, but I'm saying, is it good for you to get up here? I mean, I'm not against you. Believe me, I listen to you every day,
yes,
every night, and I respect that, right?
Yes, sir.
What I'm saying is, do you think it's right to bring people out like what you're doing? So I'm asking this.
Okay, I'm going to say this.
Yes, sir.
If you're watching your clock, we're at the end. I'm going to ask you to do something. This is on you. You can call back next week and you can make a statement, Mr. Carter, that nobody can answer if you're willing to do it. If you're willing to go in and count the chapters in the Bible where Jesus was doing just what I'm showing right here, I believe that you'll be a very surprised person. Jesus spent the majority of his time exposing the false teaching of his day so that people could see the truth when it came to them.
Did Jesus do that?
Yes, sir. You go in, do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Do us all a favor, because coming from your mouth, we've given you the opportunity. You're asking the question honestly. Go back and look. Just count the chapters where Jesus does this right here. Matthew 23, verse 6. This is the chapter where Jesus is exposing the error.
Can you show me that chapter? You got time to show me that chapter?
Yes, sir. Matthew 23, the whole chapter. Matthew 23, the whole chapter. It is unbelievable.
Matthew 23 and what else?
All of it. This is Matthew 23, John chapter 2.
Hey, write that down.
Okay, what we need to do is get in touch with each other. What are you doing tomorrow?
Actually, I would love for you to come and talk to me.
All right.
Because I've seen you, and I would love to have a talk with you.
You got my phone number?
No, not really. No.
Okay, I'm fixing to put it up.
Okay.
Here we go. I got to go off the air. Appreciate you calling tonight.
Okay.
Here is my phone number right there. 276-8.
There's this debate, and has been for years, about whether or not, we should worship on Christmas. But I'm still under the understanding that, the reason why I am Christian is because of Christ. And I can't take his day, his birthday, if you will. Listen, and Jesus wasn't born on the 25th of December. Let's not get it twisted, because Johnny Robinson is watching, and he gonna put it on cable 18, Star News, that Charles Whitfield in East Martinsville said that Jesus was born, and he gonna show you many reasons why he wasn't. Jesus was not born on the 25th of December. We celebrate the Christ that day, and we celebrate it as him being born, because we don't know exactly when he was born, but that's the day that we celebrate. And because that's the day that we celebrate, and because I am a Christian, then I think...
You're not going to say anything about these preachers who threatening to whip me? Threatening to bust my head wide open? Well, I'm basically actually saying things like Jesus said, pointing out. See, he had to change that I slandered. I didn't slander anybody, folks. These are the facts. You can't slander with facts. Mr. Motley will tell you that. I believe Mr. Motley can tell us, if he wants to, he could call in tonight and tell us. He's called in.
And with us today, I'm Johnny Robertson. We're live on What Does the Bible Say? And we're always in that mode where we are trying to get stuff together. Multiple things going on, everything from a florist ringing our bell right at the studio time, and just a lot of stuff going on. So we appreciate you being with us. We hope that you have your Bible. We hope that you have a notepad out, pen, and we encourage people on a regular basis to get a wide margin Bible. Why? Because you can take notes during this class, and we encourage you to do so. And I'm having a look to see how our look is. Margin Bible. Why? Because you can take notes. And what we want you to do is we want to become familiar with what we're talking about. And today, folks, we are really, when we get done today, my goal is going to be that you have a grasp on some things in Kings that enables you. You're going to have to study. I'm saying there is no doubt about it. I have hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. It's just, I don't know if I could even count, because Caleb and I have already taught Kings in 2008, 17, 18 maybe. And so we spent a lot of time in Kings and Chronicles together. And now here we are again, and we're doing this at a different level. I'll say that. I give it my best anytime I'm teaching, but the expectation associated with putting it up on YouTube, the other that we taught, we did not put it up on YouTube. The expectation putting it up on YouTube for you, especially some of you who are going to look at this from the standpoint of you want to preach and teach, you want to be a good Bible student, you want to go out and be able to talk to people about their salvation and what you're really going to do. Someone might think that you're not going to find anything to talk about in Kings. Well, you definitely will be able to apply Kings. And then not only that, I don't know what you do in the daytime as you go along in your life. If you have mundane tasks, and when you're involved in a task that doesn't take a lot of your thinking process, it's just, behavior. Like yesterday, I'm putting a battery on a car and I'm having to take the wing nuts off, and the wing nut, it's tight. It's close by the fender. So I'm sitting there and thinking it's cold. And do you think I spend a lot of time thinking about that wing nut? I'm saying that's a mundane task. It doesn't take my brain. I'm basically thinking about why Jehu did not finish out his life as a good man, and how it is that individuals that we're looking at in this study, the things that they encounter, let's say, for instance, encountering a prophet, and this prophet is telling you that you are going to be involved in a process that's going to totally take out the enemy factor, the evil factor. I mean, can you imagine if in fact there was such a thing today, that God would empower you? This would be miracle. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying let's go back to Kings, where they actually had all kinds of miracles going on and miraculous revelation, and you basically got the instructions of how to disable all the pay-per-view channels that contain nudity. And let's just say, that's just totally impossible. Listen, nothing's impossible. The TV channels have the ability to scramble the channel in such a way that your receiver can't get it, so you don't get pay-per-view. What if somebody could figure out how to send out a signal the other direction and cause just be a blocking mechanism is all it would be. And you might say, well, Johnny, what do you know about blocking mechanisms? I told you I lived on Rocket Island. It is just unbelievable what our capabilities are these days. And so, but I'm saying, what if you could do that, and you heard that and you were commissioned to do it, and then it's okay, then you spent the rest of your life looking at porn. That just makes no sense. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. It's these men, Jehu in particular, is a person who becomes king as a result of instruction. And so what am I saying to you? I was taking the wing nut off my battery, remember? And this is the kind of thing that I'm pondering on, and I'm pondering about myself. You know, it gives you something to think about as you go through these things. And what was it I really was thinking about? The application is, so Johnny, what if, you know, are you putting into place behaviors and warning systems and whatnot in your life to keep you from getting off? And when you talk about getting off, you know, it really doesn't take that much. 1 degree, if you're flying a plane and you get off course 1 degree, you know, this is basically just something from my memory, so I'm going to get it wrong. But it's something to this degree. If you leave from California and you get off 1 degree off your flight plan, instead of ending up in D.C., you could end up on the other side of Boston. That's quite a mistake, and you can look that up. It's basically called the 1 degree principle. And so in life, same thing. When you're talking about trying to walk from here to our library, if you basically are 1 degree off, by the time you get there, you're going to end up at Papa John's. The distance between here and the library, it's like that. Well, boy, I don't want to end up at Papa John's. I was going to the library, or maybe it's the other way around. I'm going to Papa John's. Can't wait for my pizza, and you end up at the library. Well, okay, I know that doesn't matter, but just think about your life. If you get off a couple of degrees, in other words, you're not paying attention to your Christian life, you're not paying attention to the practices that you're getting in, the next thing you know, you've got a habit that is actually literally turning you into a different person. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about putting this into play, and what we're talking about is you telling somebody about the Christian life. And we're simply saying this is the kind of thing that you would be talking to them that the Bible does. Maybe you don't realize the Bible does that. So here we are today. What does the Bible say? School edition. You see my email up there, joeblue81@gmail.com. That's where I get most of my emails that I really pay attention to. We're broadcasting into different areas as we have our shows, and we want to make sure that you realize that. Tonight we'll be on Cable 18, and we'll be broadcasting all over Henry County, simulcasting YouTube, television, all at the same time, live call-in show. And so Thursday night is 2-state area, and tonight I'll actually be broadcasting into North Carolina beyond Raleigh, into the Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Wilson, North Carolina area, also Goldsboro, all down in there. Sometimes people from Fayetteville tell me that they get the signal. So this is where we're going, and these are the ways you can get in touch with us. You just simply type in Johnny Robertson into the YouTube search bar, and boom, you got us. And you have to look up what you want to watch. It's live videos, or you get in playlists, and you can look at schools and go back and see our school episodes. We've gone from Genesis to here. I've done an introduction to Hebrews. Caleb has done Luke, Life of Christ in the book of Luke, and I'm not sure if there's any more New Testament classes. And so this morning, let's basically start, and this is what we're doing. And one of the things to remind you that this is archived, so if you get going through here and you say, man, that was just too much, there's no way I can handle this, just chill. You know, you can move that time bar back, and you can pause, and you can look at it, and you can get it again. He's got how many verses up on his screen today? So here's what I want to do. I want us to go backwards if we can, and I'm just going to basically show you something about details. I'm in 1 Kings 16:8, and in the 26th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Elah, the son of Baasha, to reign over Israel in Tisra, 2 years. And his servant Zimri, captain of his chariots, conspired against him, and he was in Tisra, drinking himself drunk in the house of Arza, steward of the house in Tisra. And basically what happens is you go on down, and Tisra has conspired against Baasha's son, Elah, and taken the kingdom away from him. Zimri is a captain of the host. But when you say he's captain of the host, well, how many hosts? Well, often armies will have like 4 captains of the host, and they'll have XYZ members. That's basically what we're talking about here. And so Zimri conspires, and he kills Elah, the son of Baasha, and he takes over the kingdom. And then you drop down and you end up seeing that other individuals are also involved in a conspiracy. And the people were encamped against Gibbethon, which belonged to the Philistines. And people that were encamped heard say, Zimri hath conspired and hath also slain the king. Wherefore all Israel made Omri the captain of the host over Israel that day in the camp. Well, here's a captain. And here's a captain, and then Omri ends up, one of the other captains decide that he's going to conspire against Omri, and ends up Omri is king, and his son Ahab then becomes king. Now, why did I bring that up? Okay. Notice, Timnah and Omri end up having to decide, it has to be decided by the people who's going to be the king. But the people that followed Omri prevailed against the people that followed Timnah, the son of Ginnah. So Timnah died and Omri reigned. Now we're going to get a piece of information that's going to show you the perspective, okay? This is 2 Chronicles 17, verse 14. And all of a sudden, again, 1 Kings 16, you get all of this information about 3 different captains. Detail. Remember that's what we're talking about. Here is some detail. This is going to give you a tremendous perspective. This is talking about Jehoshaphat. These are the numbers of them, according to the house of their fathers, of Judah, the captains of the thousands, Adonai the chief, with the mighty men of valor, 300,000. Next to him was Jehohanan. I didn't remember that I was going to have to pronounce these names. The captain, and with him 280,000. The next was Ahaziah, the son of Zichri, who willingly offered himself unto the Lord, and with him 200,000 mighty men of valor. And Benjamin, Eladah, a mighty man of valor, with him armed men with the bow and shield, 200,000. And the next to him was Jehoshaphat, and with him 180,000 ready prepared for the war. 1.1 million standing army. That's what Jehoshaphat had. But my point was, captains of the host. Zimri, he's a captain of the host. This is all Israel now. And Omri and Timnah. So you've got 3 captains of the host. How many men were they in control of? And what in the world is going on? This is a major upheaval when you're reading this. But my point really was, when you were reading over here, you were probably saying, you just probably were reading captain, conspiracies, how does that work? But then what I'm saying to you is, don't read like that. Try to make it something that is like something real. When you're watching a movie, say for instance a Civil War movie, and you're looking at a spread out group of individuals, and one of the captains or one of the individuals that's in that scene tells you how many people died at Shiloh, or at another Civil War event, or let's just say World War I or World War II, or over in Vietnam. I mean, they're all the time giving us numbers like that, and we pay attention to that, and we gauge how terrible an event it was. 6 million Jews. Supposedly, I don't know how individuals come up with different numbers. Oftentimes they are different. I'm not going to say anything about the Holocaust one way or the other. I don't have a clue as to the number. It could have been more than 6 million, but that's the number that comes out on a regular basis. And then how many people died in Vietnam, it just keeps twirling around my head, different numbers. So, but you see what I'm saying? It's like when we're hearing that, that's really important. How many people got COVID throughout the world? How many people got COVID in the United States? And those numbers, that's what I'm saying. They mean something to you when somebody's trying to make a point, maybe to turn you to the left or the right in politics, or to maybe cause you to be more careful and determine that you're going to do this or that to make yourself safe. We do that in real life, but in Bible study, captain. We didn't even get ourselves together in this. Maybe if you remember anything, you remember that Zimri was drunk and he burned the house down, and it was actually the castle. So, see what I'm saying? Peace with Israel. This is 1 Kings 22:44. And Jehoshaphat made peace with the king of Israel. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat and his might that he showed and how he warred, are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the Kings? This is one of the most significant passages that you're going to miss. Can I put it that way? I had to search far and wide 3-4 years ago when I was teaching these classes, because I was just like, what does it mean that Jehoshaphat made peace? And why did Jehoshaphat make peace with Israel? Israel is on the decline. They have a false god from the days of Jeroboam. In 1 Kings chapter 13, they have a false god, and they've split up the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. God actually had it happen because Solomon was bringing in so many false gods, and so he split up the kingdom and let Jeroboam have it and have 10 tribes, and Jeroboam was supposed to use that to keep the kingdom pure. He did not. But here's the thing. They continued to decline, and now you got Jehoshaphat, one of the great kings of Judah, and he is doing more than his father Asa, and all of a sudden you see him turning, pivoting, and making peace with Israel. Who is Israel at this time? Ahab and his wicked wife Jezebel, who have brought in the principal god of Tyre, Baal. Now, what in the world? Why would he do that? Well, there are significant points of interest that will help you to see how it happened and see how it can happen to you. I mean, when you read that, you just read that and that's the end of it. That is absolutely a guarantee that you will never get a handle on your Bible. And this is significant. And not only is it significant in the sense that you'll never actually learn how to apply these points in a very applicable way. When I say applicable, what does it mean? When you're doing these mundane tasks, here's another one to think about. Why? How? What in the world led up to this? How could he possibly go in that direction? And so, also, if you don't get this, if you don't get 1 Kings 22:44, you're at the end of 1 Kings, you're about to turn the page and go into 2 Kings, you don't get this, you will be lost until you get completely to 2 Kings chapter 11 and start in 2 Kings chapter 12. You will be totally lost. You will not be able to maneuver through the kings because there is some intermingling here with the kings, Judah and Israel. And when you actually intermingle, like for instance, when families join, woman, man, she's got a family and they've got names. I've got a family, my family has names, and then what are we going to do? We're going to have a baby. And then what happens? The naming starts. Guess what? My wife's mama wants her relatives named in our child. I want my child to be named according to the way that I want it to be named. And the next thing you know, you've got these names intermingling. What does that mean? What does that mean? We all know what that means. But when you're doing your Bible study, it's like we don't think in those fashions. And because we don't pay attention to detail, and there's this extremely long void of information or section of information that is just a void. We don't know what's going on. And it all comes down to the inability to figure out the names. And this is the key passage. Jehoshaphat made peace with the king. Now, y'all, I got a task today. I'm just telling you, if you're a person who is watching and you're a student, I have a task that is extremely difficult. Now, when I was in school, and some classes that I have been in, the teacher had a chalkboard, and you could pull one chalkboard out, and you could basically do what you've got on that chalkboard, huge chalkboard. Then you push that one back, and you reach behind it and pull out another one. And you can keep doing that, and the class basically is able to see constantly. Now, some of this stuff is difficult when you're changing slides. It's difficult on you to keep it together, and that's what I'm trying to do. The information is so intense that I have a hard time keeping together, so I'm going to be trying to use my PowerPoint in a way that will help you, and it may be confusing. I hope that it works. So this is the passage that we already looked at about numbers. So 1 Kings 22:1. And they continued 3 years without war between Syria and Israel. Don't lose me. I'm in 1 Kings 22, and I'm letting you look at verse 44. And in order to get this business about the peace with the king of Israel, you have to go back and have a look at it. Why would we want to do this? Because you're about to turn the page, and 2 Kings is going to start, and you don't want to be confused. And they continued 3 years without war between Syria and Israel. And it came to pass in the 3rd year that Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, came down to the king of Israel. And the king of Israel said unto his servants, Know ye that Ramoth in Gilead is ours, and we be still, and take it not out of the hand of the king of Syria. And he said unto Jehoshaphat, Wilt thou go with me into battle to Ramoth Gilead? Well, number one, since we started the way we did, can you now see why Ahab is asking him to go into battle with him? Or Ahab's son is asking him to go into battle with him? Jehoshaphat has a standing army of 1.1 million. What in the world? So now you basically are about to have war with, well, if you do go out to Ramoth Gilead, the king of Syria is going to basically involve himself, and we need some help. How about half my army? My men are as your men, he ends up saying. My horses are as your horses. Now, does that not make reading this totally different? Like you just have immersed yourself in the details to the point where you're like, I get this. I can get why the king of Israel would do whatever he could in order to get Jehoshaphat involved with him. Now, tell me this. Is life any different than this? Do you not have allies? Do you not have allies in your family? People that are closer to you that you discuss situations with? And it's like, okay, you know, so-and-so that we're going to have to be involved with on a constant basis acting in this fashion, and maybe 2 or 3 individuals, and you're not gossiping and talking about these individuals. You're trying to figure out how to handle life. You have allies. And what if one of them switches on you? Man, all of a sudden, all the information that you've told them now is in the hands of the other person, and they've got your orders. They've got basically your plan of action. Now you got to pivot and change that. Work, same thing. I am having an opportunity to be involved with people that are in a church, and they're telling me about the activity that goes on with people that are close to the pastor and how that they maneuver in such a way to build themselves up and curry favor. Why do you want to curry favor with the pastor? Man, these pastors out there, some of them own all kinds of businesses, and if you get close to the pastor, well, you know, next thing you know, you'd be driving a limousine. Really? Oh, if you don't know that kind of stuff, then you're out there. If you're a member of the Church of Christ, you probably don't know that stuff because you're not involved with sectarian people, and you don't know what they're going through and the levels of graft and cheating and all of the things that's going on. And if you don't care, if you don't know, that means you don't care, and people are hurting. And you could be the person who would end up, I guarantee you, we're going to eradicate some of that information and have in the past. I think I showed Sunday night a pastor that ended up in federal prison as a result of him calling in and telling all of his misdeeds on our television broadcast. And that went on for a year. I'm saying all of the stuff that we were talking about and pulling out of him went on a year. Next thing you know, he's in federal prison. All right. So, 1 Kings 22:50. That was not hard. 1 Kings 1, we read a bit about Jehoshaphat becoming confederate with Israel, Judah and Israel. We read 1 Kings 22:44, peace was made between the two. 1 Kings 22:50, here comes the peace. Here's basically what you're actually getting into. Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, his father. Jehoram, his son, reigned in his stead, and Ahaziah, the son, Ahaziah. You got to get these down because sometimes there's just a little bit of difference in the way somebody else's name is pronounced. Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel in Samaria the 17th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and reigned 2 years over Israel. Now, so we're moving into the next generation. I apologize for having to look at that. I don't know if it's going to be something that I need to take care of. Does that mean anything? So, here we go. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about the information. Whoever it is that's texting me is also watching me, and so that's just like, is that a piece of information that I need to do anything, or go your way? Look at 1 Kings 22, verse 40. So Ahab slept with his fathers, and Ahaziah, his son, reigned in his stead. All right. What you're actually seeing there is that's mentioned twice. Why is it mentioned twice? Because if it's mentioned twice in the same chapter, it means that you need to get a handle on it. Something's coming up. It's one of those Hey, pay attention. If it's mentioned 3 times, it's really important. So let's read that again. Who is the king after Jehoshaphat and Judah? Jehoram. Who is the king after Ahab dies? Ahaziah. Verse 40. So Ahab slept with his fathers, and Ahaziah his son reigned in his stead. The writer, the Holy Spirit, wants you to know that Ahaziah is the son that reigned instead of Ahab. Now, 2 Kings chapter 1, 2 Kings chapter 1:1, we're turning the page. We're entering into 2 Kings. Then Moab rebelled against Israel after the death of Ahab. Now, y'all, let me just kind of change the way I'm going about this. I'm telling you, if you don't get this, if you're like not trying to jot this down, if you look at a commentary, if you look at 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, you're going to have so much disagreement up in here. And it's just not, I'm saying it's difficult because people aren't paying attention in the early stages. If you pay attention in these stages, all of a sudden, your Old Testament will come alive. I'm just telling you, it will come alive. It will come alive from 1 Kings chapter 12 and to 2 Kings chapter 12 in such a way that you just will not believe. You will end up actually knowing that you know how to maneuver, and you'll know who you're reading about, and then you can actually put the storyline into your life. But if it's a confusing, here's an example, y'all. I know everybody knows this. People set out to read the Bible, and they get to Leviticus, and you start reading the laws. And all of a sudden, you just basically, you're like, what in the world? Go back on our playlist. I was teaching some of Leviticus, and I was basically showing what was really going on, Leviticus chapter 1 through 9. And what it really was is prepping for the first worship service, Leviticus chapter 1 through 9. It was prepping for the first worship service, and then they have the first worship when they have built all of the tabernacle, and they've put together all of the instruments that are going to be used, and they have purified the priest. Everything is just like the tension, and then Nadab and Abihu are killed. If you don't understand what's going on from Leviticus 1 through chapter 9, you will have no idea why Nadab and Abihu died. And it is fascinating when you understand what is really going on, and then you start seeing the prep and the purification and what's going on, and then you move a few chapters later and you find out that drinking was involved. The inability to make a discernment between holy things and common things is being the problem, and the cause, or basically it is the cause for God demonstrating his wrath. And as you're reading that, even Aaron gets confused. I mean, the confusion is just such that they completely mess up the offering, and they offer the wrong animal, and it's just like one's missing. See what I'm saying? Nobody cares about these details. You do. We do. Because why? We're members of the body of Christ. When we worship God, it is the most edifying, important element of our entire life, because when we pay attention to the worship, God looks at us and realizes that we're trying to be faithful servants who are worshiping him correctly. You might say, what? Johnny, I've never heard this kind of stuff. Look, when your heart is set to worship God correctly, then the worship that God has set up actually has a meaningful purpose that takes place. Things take place. You're built up in a way that you won't be built up if you're not doing it the way that God designed it. I just can't, I can understand it. Preachers are not really concerned about the people in the pew, and as a result of that, you're just going through ho-hum stuff, and people do not realize. Can I tell you something? And this is not going to change my status, my salary, or anything. And I'll just say, in a comparative way. My teachers, I had one particular teacher, his name was, I can't think of his first name right now, Brother Curry, and he got up at 4 a.m. to prepare classes that he had been teaching for 20 years. But he wasn't teaching me. He hadn't taught me for 20 years. And he still got up at 4 in the morning to get ready for our 10 o'clock class on, just say for instance, geography, archaeology, and Isaiah, Jeremiah. He didn't teach Isaiah, Jeremiah, Joshua, the different classes that he taught. And so I'm saying to you, my concern for you is at that same level. 4 a.m. this morning. And I told you, I've already taught this more than once. In the islands, different ways, preached out of Kings and Chronicles. And then Caleb and I taught it with all our heart at Danville. And now here we are presenting it to you. And I'm saying to you, these details are extremely important. I do not want you to miss this section because it will change. It really change your life. Once you realize what you had missed and what is really here. Now, what were we saying? We're saying we just now turned the page into 2 Kings, and we now know that Jehoshaphat has made peace with Israel. And what did that mean? Well, he gave you the players twice. Ahaziah is the son of Ahab. Well, Ahab's a wicked man. So you've got Ahaziah. Is he going to be wicked or is he going to be different? Worshiping Baal. They still have the calf in Bethel and Dan. They're not worshiping properly. They have sodomites. They have rituals associated with fornication in their worship. And what does that mean? If you're doing that in your worship, how do you think people were acting on a regular basis? If fornication is, something that is that just, it's an everyday occurrence and it's actually happening at worship because some of this stuff has to do with fertility and things of that nature, how do you think the moral life was? Atrocious is how it was. Justice and honor, it's not being practiced. Well, what's justice? Justice is how you're treated when you misbehave. What does that mean? The person who is your judge, if justice isn't really a matter of importance, like somebody, you go to court and the lawyer that you've got, he's friends with the judge, and he just basically says to the judge, well, you know what? Last time this other lawyer got to win, it's my turn, vice versa. You think that doesn't happen? That's what happens when there is no justice. When the police are not moral, how do you think they're going to treat you? How do you think they're going to treat other individuals? They could mistreat an entire class of individuals that creates a problem with that particular class of individuals that makes them despise another class. And it all has to, it's a stepping stone. So that's what we're talking about. What this kind of behavior does to society. Moab rebelled against Israel after the death of Ahab. And Ahaziah fell down through a lattice in his upper chamber that was in Samaria and was sick. And he sent messengers, and he said unto them, Go inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, whether I shall recover of this disease. Now, I'm not going to read all of this to you. This is something where you're going to end up reading yourself. He ends up sending this messenger, and the messenger ends up running into Elisha. Now, Elijah's already dead. Elisha is now the prophet, and Elisha basically says back to this messenger, is it because there is no God in Israel that you're being sent to this God that's associated with Tyre, the God that Jezebel and Ahab brought in? Is that why you're doing that? And then he ends up saying to him, go tell your master Ahaziah, that he is going to die. All right, so Ahaziah has been put into play here. He is the son of Ahab. 1 Kings 1:17. So he died according to the word which Elijah had spoken. I apologize. I'm paying so much attention to these kings. I let it slip. Elijah doesn't die until 2 Kings chapter 2, and Elisha then is put in play. So, excuse me this morning for being so involved in the actual kings that it slipped my mind that it was chapter 2 where Elisha comes in. Now you got it. Here it is. Which Elijah had spoken, and Jehoram reigned in his stead in the 2nd year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, because he had no son. If you don't get this, you'll never get past this passage right here. This is a pivotal point. Most people don't get past it. Let me do something right quick because I realize that I didn't change the color in the text, and I don't want you to miss that. It is under several different layers here. Hold on just a second. See if I can get down to it. No. Control Z, Control Z. I'm just going to have to deal with it. There's too many slides on top of that. All right, here we go. I hope you can see that. So he died, according to the Lord, the word of the Lord which Elijah had spoken. Now watch what's going on. You can see this part, the red. Jehoram reigned in his stead in the 2nd year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, because he had no son. Ahaziah has no son, so his brother is going to reign. And Jehoshaphat has made peace with Ahab. Ahaziah becomes the king. Ahaziah and Jehoshaphat are in league to beat back the Syrians. Ahaziah receives a wound. I'm getting ahead of myself. Ahaziah falls through a lattice and he ends up dying as a result of it, and his brother Jehoram ends up being king. But Jehoshaphat's got a son named Jehoram. Okay, see that? See how that's going to work? Particularly if you're going back and forth to Chronicles and Kings, which you have to do because the details are repeated there, and more details or less details depending on which one you're reading. So, what's going on here? Jehoram. Well, I guarantee you, don't you know you're going to miss something? Can you see now why individuals skip this part and it never comes up? Y'all, there are so many good things that lie from here to chapter 12. And they're just, most people do it just like Leviticus. Okay, here we go. 2 Kings 8:16. Look what we're doing. We're jumping from 2 Kings 1:17 to 2 Kings chapter 8. Why? Can I say this to you? When you can't figure a thing out, sometimes you just need to read on. Just let me make this simmer. Sometimes the answer is ahead. And when you're studying the Bible, or really when you're studying anything, oftentimes you get just kind of stubbed somewhere. And so what do? Do you just I don't know what people do, but I know in regular studies, oftentimes a person is in a particular section of information and they miss something and they know they're missing it and they say, well, okay, I don't understand this, so I'm going to read ahead. But they don't read ahead expecting to get the answer to what it was they left behind. That's a major mistake in any discipline. And in all disciplines, there are certain things that will be positioned, and those things won't really come to, they won't materialize, the real meaning won't materialize until you get some more information. Sometimes the person who is putting the information out there will say, in a side note, it will say chapter 4 is going to shed a lot more information on this, and so when you get to chapter 4, come back and it'll help you. That's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm basically saying the piece, you got to get it. Ahaziah, Jehoram, you got to get this. Well, where is the information? Move ahead. 2 Kings chapter 8, verse 16. Why are we doing this? Because once you do this, then it enables you to see what's going on in the chapters in between and the horrendous activity that is taking place and why Jehu ends up being so important. And then we're going to meditate on Jehoram later on. Jehu. All right, you ready? In the 5th year of Joram. Here's a note. Sometimes, I was at my mechanic yesterday and he says, got you going, John. John's not my name. Johnny is my name. But some people just get off on calling you another name, or they call you a portion of your name. I don't really care, but I'm just saying. You see what I'm saying? Don't get excited because somebody is called shortened part of his name. In the 5th year, but which one is it? You got 2 Jehorams, and now you got somebody calling him, one of them, Joram. In the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, that cleared up for you? Jehoram, His name is Jehoram, but in just passing and writing about him, they shorten it to Joram. Okay, but you got it. He's the son of Ahab, king of Israel. Jehoshaphat being the king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, began to reign. 2 Kings 8:18, and he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, as did the house of Ahab, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord. Now, it's on me if a light bulb doesn't come on, because I'm the one actually presenting the information. Did a light bulb just come on? Maybe you got hung up in the name changes. Let's do it again. In the 5th year of Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat then being king of Judah, Jehoram, switching now, son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, began to reign, and he, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, walked in the way of the kings of Israel. Why did he? As did the house of Ahab. For the daughter of Ahab was his wife, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord. You just got it. The affinity, one passage, the peace that is being made is these individuals are leaning towards each other because of a relationship that is actually behind the scenes. Jehoshaphat's son marries Ahab's daughter. All right, let's get this. Ahab has a son named Ahaziah. Ahaziah falls through a lattice, and he ends up sick unto death. Well, he has no son, so his brother Jehoram becomes king. Well, Jehoram is the same name as Jehoshaphat's son. Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, marries the sister of Ahaziah and Jehoram. This is basically the daughter of Jezebel. This is the daughter of Ahab. What kind of wife do you think she's going to be? And he did evil in the sight of the Lord. You think her mama doesn't have influence over her? When you pick a mate, do you think that you should look at their parents? I mean, if you're picking a wife, is it possible that you're going to be marrying the mother? What does that mean? You're saying, Johnny, this is weird. Y'all, come on. Where do girls learn their behavior? They learn it from their mother. Do they learn some from their dad? Yes, they do. They watch their mothers and their dads and the games people play, and they basically watch how each other manipulating each other. And, you know, it's sensory intake. Do you realize that when you put yourself in a position where you're having sensory intake, you're actually learning and you don't even know it? You look at these little babies, and they're constantly looking, newborn babes. Caleb has a new baby, 6 months old. I can remember when Everett first started touching people's face, and he's like, touching whatever, and parents say, when the baby touches the nose, that's a nose. And you're doing that over and over, and you don't realize that you're really teaching the child. That's what the child is doing, sensory intake. No matter what situation you're intaking. You may not realize if it's going in long-term memory or it's short-term memory, but if it's going in long-term memory, it's possible that you're learning and you're going to repeat. This is what's going on here. Very important that we're just saying this is a principle of application. And you also learned in 2 Kings 8, you're finding out maybe here's the reason I'm having so much problem with this section. It is. It's because two individuals have the same name, and they're naming children after each other. You know anybody that named, let's say for instance, your brother named his child after you? Really? What about an uncle? I'm named after my uncle, and Caleb's baby is named after me, who is named after my great uncle. See how that works? Well, is that confusing? Not really. I mean, it happens all the time, but if you're reading a story that you don't know the parts, it ends up possibly being difficult, and you think that it's a contradiction. Then you read a bunch of commentators who don't do their study. Here we go. 2 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 5. Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. Now, I realized that I have it's not another slide. I'm bringing in pieces of information that might be confusing. Just drop off right here. I forgot to put a border. Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem, and he walked in the way of kings of Israel, like as did the house of Ahab, for he had the daughter of Ahab to wife, and he wrought that which was evil in the eyes of the Lord. That's Chronicles' version of 2 Kings chapter 8. Now we got the players. Are you ready? So, this is that portion where I said to you that I may have problems with you, but I don't want to lose you, and I'm trying to use a tool, I'll just say that way. I'm trying to outsmart the tool, really. And so sometimes it's not all that easy, and I realized as I was going along here, listen, y'all, not only do we study this, then we have to process it into PowerPoint, which is an extremely detailed and sometimes very long process. Like you see me now, I'm highlighting this. And why am I telling you that? Because you probably, possibly, I hope that you do, will learn how to use visuals. The whole world is using visuals, and preachers just get up and they just talk. When individuals that bring in CEOs, and yes, I've been in meetings with CEOs, you know what they do? They use every tool available. I've been using a projector since the 90s. You might say, well, projectors weren't even out in the 90s. Maybe not for you. But I was raising funds to work in an overseas work, and I was going to get the funds. I'm not going to starve to death over there. So what did I do? I paid $2,500 for a projector. And then I get into the room, or I get into the assembly, and some of the elders have a problem with a projector, like a real-time movie projector, so that I can actually show ourselves in action. And for 15 or 20 years, they've been using a slide where you push the button and another picture comes up and it's a still. And the elders actually questioned that this was not proper, sinful. And one of the daughters just said, "Daddy, what are you talking about? Johnny's presentation is like moving action, and this other is just you see a picture." And I'm not downing people who just use a picture, but still, when they use the picture, they say, "This is what's going on." I used actual clips where you didn't have to say, "This is what's going on." You're seeing it. They actually were bringing up a shark, and then they ended up cooking that shark. And so one picture, 1,000 words, I didn't have to use all those words. Why? Because I had the entire thing. And I didn't take the length of time it takes to get a shark in and then put it on a piece of tin. That's what they were cooking it on. And then basically you're seeing a portion of it. I'm able to edit it into a very understandable movie clip. See what I'm saying? Now, what am I telling you? I can't believe that preachers are not using these tools. And so I'm telling you this morning, it is a job, but it is one worthwhile. We'll see. I'm not using it properly on this particular one because I don't want to lose you. Okay. Here we are. Let me move this just a little bit. This is 2 Kings 1 again. Now, Moab rebelled against Israel after the death of Ahab. Ahaziah fell down through the lattice. You remember that? He sends his servant to inquire of a false god. 2 Kings 1:17, and he died according to the word of the Lord, which Elijah had spoken, and Jehoram reigned in his stead the 2nd year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, because he had no son. See that? That's where we've been. Now you're just basically reading 2 Kings 1 again. And you've got the information. Ahaziah dies. And he had no son. So his brother Jehoram ends up being king. Now wait a minute. Jehoram's the king of Jehoshaphat's son. Yeah, there's two people that have the same name. Imagine that. So you basically now are seeing this. You've got your information in hand. Look at this. I'm going to introduce another passage. And it's 2 Kings chapter 8, verse 26. 2 and 20 years old, was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Athaliah. You see what I just did? Now, you might say, we read this a while ago. No, we didn't. Now you have a name. Ahaziah, son of Ahab. Jehoram, son of Ahab. Athaliah, daughter of Ahab, sister to Ahaziah and Jehoram. Now, Athaliah is married to Jehoram. 22 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign. He reigned 1 year in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Athaliah. Wait a minute. You might be saying, wait a minute. You said he married Jehoram. He did marry Jehoram. Well, you said Ahaziah was his brother. Ahaziah was Athaliah's brother. It is. But Athaliah named her child Ahaziah. Well, that's her brother's name. Yeah. Now, where are we here? We're in 2 Kings 8:26. And his mother's name was Athaliah. So, was that really that hard? When you're in 2 Kings 8, you are at the portion where Jehu's fixing to come in, and a tremendous activity takes place. And if you're dull, you remember what was said in Hebrews chapter, let me see if I can get past this. Look, if you were in class with me right now, I'm saying real class, like we were looking at each other, you wouldn't have a problem and say, let me get my Bible out here just a minute, and I'm fixing to, everybody in class turn to Hebrews chapter 5. And so I am still saying that. Turn to Hebrews chapter 5. Don't just be sitting there and not participating. Now, in Hebrews chapter 5, the writer is talking about Melchizedek, of whom we have many things, verse 11, to say, and hard to be uttered, 5:11, seeing you're dull of hearing. You see that? He needs to make a tremendous point about Melchizedek. Well, what's the point? It enables a Jew to realize that Jesus isn't actually an imposter because he wears the title of king and priest. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, really? Melchizedek did. Why do you think Melchizedek is kept recorded in Genesis chapter 14? And why does David actually quote about Melchizedek, or make a quote including that Jesus will be a king after the order of Melchizedek? What is the order of Melchizedek? Priest and king. Now, these Hebrews are thinking about going back, and the Hebrew writer is trying to keep them from it. And one of the reasons why they're thinking about going back is because they're confused about Jesus being a high priest. They're just like, no, this is so difficult. And then he brings in Melchizedek, and he said, I can't even talk to you about Melchizedek because you're so dull. And he has to wait all the way to chapter 7, and he goes back into Melchizedek again. So, I'm saying to you, if you don't get this in 1 Kings 22 and 2 Kings 1, and then have to read ahead, get in your concordance, whatever you have to do, you need to get this, because if you don't, by the time you get here to 2 Kings 8, you're going to end up being so confused, because it's going to switch back and forth. Jehoram, Ahaziah, Athaliah, and Jehoram. Two Jehorams. You got two Jehorams actually going at the same time? Yeah. And you've got an Ahaziah that died, and now you've got another Ahaziah, and you're sitting here reading Ahaziah in 2 Kings 8, and you're saying, I thought he died. Somebody in class, you're a teacher. Let's say you're going to be teaching this. Hopefully you will teach this. Somebody in class say, I thought you said Ahaziah died. And you're going to be thinking, oh, they didn't read. We went over this already. And you're basically, I can't go on with my class because you didn't study this. You didn't read ahead. You didn't read your text. And now you think that I am messed up and that I'm talking about Ahaziah who fell through a lattice. Well, here would be a suggestion from me to you. Now, I'm not going to do it for you, because I'm expecting at the level that we're teaching these classes and the individuals that are watching that I don't have to do this. But you can just give Ahaziah a last name, or give him a first name. Lattice, Ahaziah. What does that mean? It's a clue to the people in class, because all people that you're going to be teaching, I promise you, are not going to have, they're going to be thinking about all kinds of other stuff, and they're going to need something, so give it to them. Help them. You may use this yourself. You may say, Ahaziah lattice. Yeah, this is not Ahaziah lattice. I'm giving you a handle to help you to remember Ahaziah lattice, the king that fell through a lattice that had no son, and his brother ended up, who's his brother? Jehoram. Who's his brother-in-law? Jehoram. What? You didn't say that a while ago. Well, that's when I say you're supposed to pay attention to detail. If Jehoram married Athaliah, then that makes Jehoram his brother-in-law. Well, you just said Jehoram is his own brother-in-law. Now see, that's the dilemma that my friend Geno Jennings is going to be in when he starts having a debate with us and he says everybody is Jesus. He's going to end up having some passages where he's having Jesus actually say Jesus is going to come to Jesus, and Jesus is going to be sitting on the right hand of Jesus. This is not one of those instances. I'm not confused. Jehoram is the brother-in-law of Jehoram. He's not the brother-in-law of himself. He's the brother-in-law of the son of Jehoshaphat, that Jehoram. The other Jehoram is actually Ahab's son, and his sister is Athaliah. And Jehoram, Jehoshaphat's son, married Athaliah. Is that really that difficult? If you knew people that did that, it wouldn't be. You do know people that do those kinds of things, and it's not. I'll give you an instance. I had a coworker named James Floyd Ophel. His sister married a guy named James Floyd. What? Yeah, when they were at home together, they had to basically do something to help not end up being confused. James Floyd Ophel, his sister married James Floyd. What? His sister married himself? James? Yeah, James. Which James? She didn't marry James Floyd. Well, she did marry James Floyd. Stay with me. Can you imagine somebody being that dull at home and they couldn't realize that she married James Floyd, who's not an Ophel? There's a brother-in-law. James Floyd has a brother-in-law named James Floyd. James Floyd what? James Floyd Ophel. That is really not that difficult, and we never had this problem because we all knew, just don't call James Floyd Ophel James Floyd. And I don't know that his mother didn't get mad at him and say, James Floyd? And his brother-in-law jumped up and said, what have I done? See how that goes? That is how things go. Sometimes it is just that funny. Now, I have a sister-in-law, just to go on with this, I have a sister-in-law who never called me anything but DeVere. Well, Everett's name is DeVere. So she has died. In September, she passed. And if she had lived long enough, we would have gone through that scenario. Little Everett, once he realized his name was DeVere, at some point, she would say something to me. Her name is Christy. She would say something to me, and it would end up being like this. DeVere, you need to come in. We're ready to eat. And little Everett, whose name is DeVere, also would think that he's being talked to, because you can just mark it down. Somebody's going to start calling him DeVere. See how that goes? It's just that simple. Now, this is my hope. This is my hope this morning. We've made it that simple. You can run this back. This is archived. We're just about we're at the top of the hour. This is archived, and you can go back. And even though I've done, I've used PowerPoint in a way that some people would never use it, I hope that you have gotten it. 2 Kings 8:16, this is at the bottom over here. Let me get out of the way, make me disappear. And we'll just go ahead and let you be able to see it so that I don't have to be moving around, because I'm very comfortable where I am. 2 Kings 8:16. And in the fifth year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat being the king of Judah, Jehoram the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, began to reign, and he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, as did the house of Ahab. And I'm going to do this for you so that you'll actually be able to go back, and it'll be there in front of you, and you'll be able to position it. He walked in the ways let's see, the way of the kings of Israel, as did the house of Ahab, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord. Who was the daughter of Ahab? Right here, Athaliah. So what does that make Athaliah? I wish that we had our class in front of us. I would like to see the hands that went up. What does that make Athaliah? It makes Athaliah queen of Judah. What? You see what I'm telling you? This is one of the most intense, critical moments in the history of Judah. Why? Because Jesus is supposed to come from the tribe of Judah. Now, do you think Athaliah is concerned about keeping the line of Judah going? Is she really going to be, if all of a sudden a threat comes along and it seems like somebody is trying to get rid of her, do you think that she's going to be worried about keeping Jehoram's son alive? What's his name? Ahaziah. What? Look, y'all, this is extremely important, and it is not that difficult. Let's go ahead. I'm going to get in the Bible program, and I'm going to go ahead. This isn't something in particular that I had planned, but I just think this is a good place to do it at this juncture. 2 Kings chapter 11, verse 1. And when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal. How about that? I told you. Now, what happens if she is able to do that? Then God cannot keep his promise. And then that means that it all just falls apart. And so, if this was a movie, I'm saying if somebody would pay attention and realize the drama that's going on right here, it would be a series that would just be a cliffhanger. And that's exactly what it is. It is you tuning in to the point where you realize the seed royal, the seed of Judah, was about to diminish. Was it ever closer to being diminished than right here? If it was, I can't remember it. Well, there was a time when it was close in some people's mind. They were killing Jesus, and they thought they were getting the king apparent, the heir to the throne, and they were going to kill him. Some people didn't believe it. I think some people actually thought that Jesus was just a marvelous, magnificent individual, but he just had to go. Why? Because even though he is marvelous and magnificent and the people will follow him, he can do miracles that even Moses didn't do. I mean, if ever there was going to be a Messiah, is what they actually said in John chapter 7, would this not be him? And the Sadducees saw the same thing, but here's the thing. Here's what they saw. They saw that if they let him be enthroned, they thought they would lose their place with the Romans, and the Romans would come in and destroy the nation. You see what I'm saying? They thought they were killing the heir apparent. Now, I hope that made it up in your mind how important this is. Athaliah's son is named Ahaziah. Oh my, that's not that difficult. So, let's go back. Now, let's take a pause. Let me see. Let me go into our presentation mode. And now, 2 Kings 18:1, now Jehoshaphat had riches and honor in abundance and joined affinity with Ahab. That's 2 Chronicles chapter 18, verse 1. Now, do you see how all that happened? When you're reading this, I hope that when you're reading this ever in your lifetime, that you'll basically be able to go through here. You've got your details, and once you've got your details, what does that mean you can do? When you get your details, then you can meditate on it on a regular basis. Let me change that. You can meditate on it when you have things that come up and your mind is going 90 to nothing for a remedy. And guess what? Your brain scans information exactly like a computer does. And if you have this information seated in there, and your brain starts searching, how do I get out of this situation? Is there anything similar to this? And it runs across this, it'll serve it up to you. And you'll have an option that is different than the option that you may have normally taken. What does that mean? It means you have an option that came from God as opposed to one that you come up with in your own mind. You ever think about that? That's what we're doing here. If you don't get it, you're robbing yourself. If you do get it, you're giving yourself another behavior, an option that is actually heavenly, a way to choose what you want to do. Now, let me just see what I want to do here. Top of the hour, and let me play a video. And I'm going to give myself a moment to basically disappear. And I am going to still be here, but we're going to get this queued up. You're going to see a video. And we are in a huge battle right now. On the 28th, we're actually going to try to meet a person who is so well known. I just received a message today that someone in Houston had a customer that came in, and while the customer was there, asked her, our friend, if she had heard of Geno Jennings. Well, it just so happened that she came to a tent this year, and she has heard of Geno Jennings, and she ends up showing them video that we're doing, and it was us, and the people said, oh, he's bashing Geno Jennings. Well, if you've watched our broadcast, you know that Geno Jennings is always bashing people. But this is an individual who is the brother of someone that works for Geno Jennings. And take a listen to this phone call and let me have a breather.
You're not going to say anything about these preachers who threatening to whip me? Threatening to bust my head wide open? Well, I'm basically actually saying things like Jesus said, pointing out. So he had to change that I slander. I didn't slander anybody, folks. These are the facts. You can't slander with facts. Mr. Motley will tell you that. I believe Mr. Motley can tell us, if he wants to, he could call in tonight and tell us. He's called in and told us he was calling. He could tell us, you don't slander with the facts. No, sir, the facts. You can put the facts in the newspaper, and nobody can do anything about it. You see, when I talk about the Bentley and the $500,000 house, you can't get me for slander because it's on the books. And you want to get on the books and look at my stuff? Go ahead. That's fine. You know what's the Bible say? Yes, caller.
Hey, how you doing, man? Hey, this Darnell Carter's brother.
Yes.
How you been doing, man?
I'm good.
I love your teaching and all of that. But one thing I want to ask you, man, what you doing? Do you think that you point out what people, preachers, teachers, ministers, bishops are doing? Is it good for you to bring this to light?
Is it good to bring it to light?
Yeah, the way you.
Mr. Carter, the only way you're going to be able to see that these folks are leading you into darkness is for someone to point out what is right and what is wrong.
Okay, so me and you have talked before, and the public know this, but I'm saying, is it good for you to get up here? I mean, I'm not against you. Believe me, I listen to you every day,
Yes,
every
sir.
night, and,
Yes,
and I respect that, right?
Yes, sir.
What I'm saying is, do you think it's right to bring people out like what you're doing? So I'm asking this.
Okay, I'm going to say this.
Yes, sir.
If you're watching your clock, we're at the end. I'm going to ask you to do something. This is on you. You can call back next week and you can make a statement, Mr. Carter, that nobody can answer if you're willing to do it. If you're willing to go in and count the chapters in the Bible where Jesus was doing just what I'm showing right here, I believe that you'll be a very surprised person. Jesus spent the majority of his time exposing the false teaching of his day so that people could see the truth when it came to them.
Did Jesus do that?
Yes, sir. You go in, do me a favor. Do yourself a favor, do us all a favor, because coming from your mouth, we've given you the opportunity. You're asking the question honestly. Go back and look. Just count the chapters where Jesus does this right here. Matthew 23, verse 6. This is a chapter where Jesus is exposing the error.
Can you show me that chapter? You got time to show me that chapter?
Yes, sir. Matthew 23, the whole chapter. Matthew 23, the whole chapter. It is unbelievable.
Matthew 23 and what else?
All of it. This is Matthew 23. John chapter 2.
Hey, write that down.
Okay, what we need to do is get in touch with each other. What are you doing tomorrow?
Actually, I would love for you to come and talk to me.
All right.
Because I've seen you, and I would love to.
How about that, folks? I've been talking about his brother. I basically have demonstrated that his brother set the stage for me to have a debate with Geno Jennings. His brother works for Geno Jennings. His brother's Darnell, and Darnell actually set the stage for me to get in to an assembly where Geno was and to challenge him in such a way that he would have to basically respond. Like everybody would say, he's a no-show runaway if he didn't. I taped him doing that. Like while we were setting it up, I taped Darnell because I knew if it didn't go well, there'd be some denying. It didn't go well. Geno, the coward, actually sit there, and I have this all on video. The audio is us setting it up. Then when we go in, I offer Geno 3 blocks away to come on and be on television with me. He said he's going to answer anybody in town, and this would be his 3rd time to come to town. And he refused to do it. He sat behind his podium and just basically somebody was blocking him so the camera was not able to see his features and whatever. And he sat there like the coward. And then he left. And so then we went on in several shows talking about Darnell and how that Darnell actually had said some things about some individuals. And so it ended up being the case that Darnell ended up calling me and challenging me. And I had the audio. And so his brother is there calling in, and he ultimately was calling in saying, this is not right for you to do this, Johnny. And did you hear him? Now he wanted me to come and talk with him. Well, back then, I did not have the book that we have now. Back then, I was telling him, and I'm saying the Bible is its own tool. I was telling him Matthew chapter 23. You read Matthew chapter 23 and come back and tell me that Jesus didn't do the very thing I'm doing, and that is shining the light on these dudes' false teaching. Well, we have now in our possession a book called Jesus as a Controversialist. And it's an essay on how Jesus behaved himself during his entire life. And it is actually putting together the times that Jesus caused controversy on purpose so that the people would actually be more inclined to listen. When are you going to listen? You think when there is a scuffle going on? Front page of our newspaper on Sunday. A guy calls in, it's Chad Martin locally. If people are listening to this locally, Chad Martin calls in at 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night to the TV station, and he goes on a 3-hour rant. You think people aren't, man, when I got the newspaper, and then we realized that part of it was in Thursday's newspaper, and it's everybody, it's a must read. Chad Martin, city council member, actually coming out, telling all kinds of inside secrets about what's going on with city council. It was riveting, especially for our city and county because, there's a lot of stuff going on. What does that mean? People pay attention when the stakes are high. And so Jesus continually raised the stakes. What's that mean? He was challenging the religious elite of his day. Is it right to challenge Geno Jennings? He calls himself the bull. We call himself the steer. And tonight's broadcast will actually be on Geno Jennings and an introductory study to how we're going to handle him in a debate and some information that demonstrates why he's not the bull. He is actually a steer when you get down to it. Why are we saying that? Bulls can produce. Geno Jennings has actually put himself in a position where he cannot produce. So he called himself the bull. I'm saying a non-producing bull is a steer. You tune in tonight at 9 p.m. We'll be live on that. And you'll get to see that layout. Why is it important? Because on the 28th, we're hoping to catch him on site at one of his own conventions in our area. And I'm not going to tell you where it is. Some people probably might be saying to me, Johnny, you ought to tell where it is because we would like to come and see it. Don't worry, you're not going to miss it. The video will be running. Hopefully, he'll be on the news. I would love for you to be praying for us that we will get that soundbite. And at this juncture, then we'll move to why we think that. Why do we think the way we think and do the things that we do? Guess what? It's right here in this study. So let me move ahead in my presentation, and let's just see if we can actually be productive. Now, I had a glitch this morning, so you're just going to have to deal with it with me. It's difficult for me, and it's probably going to be difficult for you. And if you're watching, if you're watching and you're a person that's saying, I want to be a learner, and what do you do when things go wrong? Well, sometimes there's nothing you can do but punt and just be ready to punt. And I actually remember what I did. I meant to have that up, and then I would make this go down, and I'll use it in just a moment. All right. What I'm wanting to do at this point is I'm wanting to let you see a few things that are on the in between where I am right now in the text and where I'm going. And so, and the reason I'm doing that is to bring your interest level up, maybe, that you would be able to realize, okay, here's the things that are lying in between 2 Kings chapter 1 and 2 Kings 8, which we continually talk about, and lessons that you can learn from, and we're going to pick them up later as we go along. Here's what's in between. 2 Kings 3:1. Now Jehoram the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel in Samaria the 18th year of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, and he reigned 12 years. And he wrought evil in the sight of the Lord, but not like his father and his mother, for he put away the image of Baal that his father had made. Now, I'm basically saying in my mind to you that I expect that I just lost you, and you're wondering why I brought this up. This is a pivotal moment. I'm saying an extremely important moment, because look at what we're seeing here. This is Jehoram the son of Ahab. Now remember, Jehoram has a sister named Athaliah, and she's married to Jehoram the son of Jehoshaphat. Her brother is putting away idolatry in Israel. And we went ahead a moment ago, and I showed you that Athaliah is trying to kill the seed royal over here in 2 Kings chapter 11. Is that not something? I'm saying this is one of those times where the king of Israel is more righteous than the king of Judah. Jehoram in Judah was a terrible individual, and he was plagued with a disease where his bowels actually came out. Is there such a disease? Man, yeah, there's a disease. Can you imagine? You end up having the stomach issue, and it's actually a colon issue where your bowels just pour out of yourself and you die? That's what happened to him, and he was struck by God because he was such a wicked individual. Who's his wife? Athaliah. Is she wicked? Yes. Her son's name is Ahaziah. And Ahaziah did wickedly. Why? The Bible says because Athaliah was his mother. And Athaliah is the daughter of Jezebel. And here is Jehoram, her brother, and as he gets a chance to reign, look what he does. He actually put away the image of Baal that his father had made. So, what you're actually going to see is you're going to see a time frame where individuals that you may have written off. Here we go with application. Here's an instance, and you end up seeing somebody that you just absolutely said in your mind, there is no point in talking to this dude. And he's not a king now. In our illustration here, in life application, everybody doesn't have to be exactly how you see them in the Bible. If a king named Jehoram can actually get to the point where he's putting away the image of Baal, in other words, a major sinful activity in his life that a lot of people thought he'd never stop doing, he did it. Well, why did he do it? Elijah and Elisha are living at this same time frame. And the things that are taking place in his lifetime are such that they have gotten his attention. You might be saying, I'm not Elisha and I'm not Elijah. Oh, you have to be Elisha and Elijah in order to get people to do stuff? Listen, y'all, it just amazes me that And I'm talking to you. It amazes me that you don't have a higher expectation of what God can do in your life. And I'm not preaching at you. I know where the problem is. Often the problem is the people that are giving you the information, they're not living it. And if they're not living it, say for instance, an individual's trying to get you to have Bible studies. And let's say the preacher, he's trying to get you to have Bible studies. And that's good. I would hope that he would. But, he's the most trained guy in the crowd. And if he can't get a Bible study, what are you supposed to do? You see what I'm saying? Well, do you think that's the attitude where Caleb and I are? Did you just hear that guy say, you know what? I was upset at you about talking about my brother on live TV, but you know what? Can you come over and see me? What did I do? I just got a Bible study. And other individuals were watching that too. And it's just like, is that why you don't have higher expectations? It's because the people around you aren't practicing it, and you've never seen any amazing behaviors before. You've never seen a pastor go to jail. You ever seen a pastor convert? You never seen a pastor convert, like somebody that someone is teaching and they convert? Well, where do you live? I mean, where are you assembling? What kind of people are you around that in your lifetime you've never seen a pastor in a sectarian group actually convert as a result of being taught by a Christian in the body of Christ? You've never seen that. You know what? You need to seriously consider where you're living. You need to seriously consider where you actually are assembling, and the individuals, elders, evangelists, whatever, you need to consider, why am I not seeing this? I mean, you might say, well, we're reading about it. You sent me the book. Arkansas Angels, sent out several of these last week. Arkansas Angels, all kinds of pastors being converted, are actually having to roll up their tents and just even move out of town. And you're not seeing that? Something's wrong. And so I'm not even going to tell you. The pastors in our area and or in other states that have obeyed the gospel called me up and said, you know what does the Bible say? The information y'all are putting out, what I see y'all doing. One pastor called up and told me that he was ashamed to be a Baptist after he watched what the Baptists in our area were doing to Micah and Mark McMinnis on one of the broadcasts that we showed. Shoving them, stomping their finger. Micah had his thumbnail just almost off already, and this woman stomped his thumbnail while she was trying to stomp the camera. And a guy calls in from Wilson, North Carolina, and says, I'm ashamed to be a Baptist. And I went over and had a Bible study with him. He obeyed the gospel, and he is the reason that we have the broadcast right now in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, that covers 3-4 counties, bedroom community to Raleigh. That's why our expectations are high, y'all. It's because we try, and I hope to be able to present information to you as we go along here as to why we do try. Why is it we think? I have the pastor over in Roanoke that went to jail. He was criticizing me and getting after me one day, and he said, come up in here like Mighty Mouse. Now, some of you young people don't know who Mighty Mouse is, but as we were growing up, Mighty Mouse was a caped crusader. Yeah, a mouse with a cape on. Mighty Mouse. And we just love Mighty Mouse. And he's my age, so he was making fun of me. You come up in here like Mighty Mouse. Got your wife up in here. He said, you ought to think more of your wife. And it's like, dude, what are you scared of? Got a helicopter, a bus, got your own convalescent home, and got a grill, signs all over Roanoke about your grill, and got a Bentley, Phantom Rolls Royce, $800,000 house out on the golf course and all that, and you're basically afraid of a few people over here having a scuffle right here on the road? Mighty Mouse. I probably have been called a lot worse. And here's the thing. I don't let that stuff bother me, and you shouldn't either. The individuals that will criticize you, I would encourage you, don't be picking at them. Go do something. Because if you just argue with them and pick at them about what they're not doing, and especially if you put our name into it, I'm watching what's the Bible saying, Johnny and Caleb saying blah, 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 y'all ought to do this and y'all ought to do that. We're not just talking to the preacher. We're not just talking to the elders. We're also talking to you. If they're not doing anything, that's not any reason for you not to do something. And they would listen to you a lot better if you did get out and get a Bible study, and then you can say, you want to help me with this Bible study? Because it could be the case that you can get the Bible study, but you can't bring it to fruition. And it would encourage the preacher or one of the elders or somebody in the congregation to help you. And all of a sudden, a spark is lit. Next thing you know, you're an evangelistic congregation. It's just that simple. You say no? We have people who come to our tent all the time and just basically say, we realize we're not living the book of Acts, that we're not seeing conversions, we're not being taught about this kind of thing. We are beat down. We don't have any hope. All hope is lost. And they turn their life around, and as a result of turning their life around, they turn other people's lives around as well. So here we are. What did we just demonstrate? I hope that you will go away from this and say, man, alive, if Jehoram, the son of Ahab, is putting away his father's idol worship, particularly his mother, Jezebel's idol worship. And Ahab's dead, but Jezebel's not. So that basically means he's going against his mother. He's getting rid of Baal worship. 2 Kings 8:4. And the king talked with Gehazi, the servant of the man of God, saying, tell me, I pray thee, all the great things that Elisha has done. You know what that's telling you right quick? I'm giving you information in the text for you to read yourself. This king in 2 Kings 3 ends up getting in touch with Elisha's servant, Gehazi. Well, what is Gehazi? Gehazi is the man that was involved with Elisha when he healed Naaman, the captain of the Syrian, from leprosy. Now he's in touch with the king in 2 Kings chapter 8, verse 4, and he's asking about the feats associated with the great things that Elisha has done. Tell me about your master Elisha. And so he ends up telling him an account where Elisha raised somebody from the dead. And about the time he's telling about that account, the woman whose son was raised from the dead comes on the scene and ends up verifying that it has happened. And she also then has a request for this king, Jehoram, the king, the son of Ahab, who everybody else probably gave up on. You know, this is that point where we need to basically back up and stop and tell you the grace of God that is being extended from 1 Kings 17, when Elijah comes on the scene, through 2 Kings, I don't know exactly where it is that Elisha dies. My mind just doesn't need that right this minute, but Elisha's going to die. He didn't live forever. That was an extended 1 Kings 17 to at least 2 Kings 8 is it's a massive portrayal of God's grace. What does that mean? You've got the most wicked king and his wife, and they are actually living in the time frame where God says, I'm going to send Elijah and Elisha into their lives, and I'm going to have them preach and do mighty feats, miracles, and wonders in order to try to get their attention. Why? Because somebody might decide to get rid of the horrible activities that are going on in their life. Y'all, we've got to be more hopeful for people. And I'm hopeful for you. I'm just going to leave it in this. It's going to be kind of a big question mark. The people that Caleb has been visiting and the people that we together are talking to, I think it would blow your mind. We're both talking to individuals that are just totally out there in some people's minds. Now, the one that Caleb talked to yesterday, I'm not going to reveal it, but I'm just going to tell you, most people would say, why in the world did you waste your time? Well, you know what? We're wasting a lot of time on the individuals that are watching this broadcast right now, because there's a lot of people that are watching to see what we're going to say about them, and they think, that we're just out here hating on them. I'm not really wasting my time. And I had a preacher tell me the other day that he couldn't tell somebody the truth about the sin they were involved in, let's say the fellowship issues they were having, until he came buds with them. You got to build a relationship. That's exactly what the president of one of the schools, Daddy, told me, that I actually had to build a relationship with the president of Pepperdine University before I could help him with his activity associated with mechanical music, women preachers, denominational, sectarian people that they're inviting to their lectureship. And I'm just like, man, are you out of your mind? I didn't say that, but I just said, I made an argument where he ended up giving in. No, you don't have to do that. It would be ridiculous for me to have to talk to everybody in person. I can present the information in a factual way so that they can see it, but I got to have the facts. Nobody is hopeless. I haven't given up on our brotherhood. That's why we're doing what we're doing. That's why we're presenting these classes. We're basically saying you could be part of the hope of the brotherhood. How's that? Well, you would not believe the people that Caleb and I are involved with, and one of the reasons we are involved with them is this. Goebel Music was one of the most well-known preachers in the brotherhood when I was in my 20s. And he basically stepped down from whatever he was doing, and I'm saying that in a metaphorical way. That's what it was to me. He stooped to the level of an individual named Johnny Robertson who had no reputation, and hardly anybody thought that I was worth the time. And he offered me the opportunity to put his name on my resume to get myself into the Memphis School of Preaching. Here I am today. And I think that Goebel Music would be pleased with the turnout of his effort. I said, I hope that he would be pleased. He's passed now, and I haven't been in contact with his daughter, but Caleb has. And so at one point, they were asking people that knew Goebel to call and give him some encouragement. And she let us know that, so that tells me that he would be pleased. Other individuals like Mac Deaver, just unbelievable influence. Do I recommend Mac Deaver today on his teaching on the Holy Spirit? No, I do not. But I cannot stop loving Mac Deaver. Individual who also let me put his name on my resume and came to Memphis and encouraged me, preached the gospel where I was preaching, preached the gospel in Detroit, Texas, where I was preaching. He came and rescued the church in Clarksville, Texas, and helped actually eradicate the move towards Oklahoma Christian University and Abilene Christian University back in the day, in the 80s. Lovely man. I don't know if he ever watches my broadcast or his sons ever watch my broadcast, but I got up in the middle of the night and shined his boots when he was at my house, and he never knew it. Anything I could do for Mac Deaver because of how much he helped me. See what I'm talking about? You never know which individual that you're going to put your hand on, and that person affect others. And that's the way it works. You know, Gehazi, who was he? We'll pull this up and you'll see who Gehazi was. Gehazi was the servant of Elisha. And I would say most Bible students have heard a sermon about the king of Syria writing a letter to the king of Israel, and saying, I have a servant who has come into contact with a maid that is from Israel, and she has told my captain named Naaman that there is a cure for leprosy, and I would like to send my captain over to you. And basically the Bible says in 2 Kings chapter 5 that Jehoram rent his clothes, and he said, am I God to make alive that this man send unto me that I might recover leprosy? What's he saying? He's basically saying, is he picking a fight with me? I mean, what in the world? Scared him to death. And what ends up happening? Well, what ends up happening is Elisha heard about it, and he basically sent. Elisha, the man of God, had heard that the king of Israel has rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know there is a prophet in Israel. What were we just doing? Y'all, we were looking just a minute ago at 2 Kings 8, where the king is talking to Gehazi. He said, tell me some more stuff about your Elisha, your master. See how this stuff goes? It's just like, these are things that you need to be thinking about while you're going down the road. And I don't it's not my business what you do necessarily, unless I can encourage you not to do wrong. But while you're listening to music, you know, if you stop and think about it, you could just as easily dial up Alexander Scorby. We're old people here. I'm an old person. He's an individual that people always used to want to listen to audio of King James Version. But with your smartphone, you can pull up a video, audio, either one, of 2 Kings, and you could plug it right into your fancy car, and the world is just a totally new place, and we should be using these new inventions in order to make ourselves stronger. You could be listening to this and encouraging yourself, and you could be listening to what does the Bible say. And I've been being encouraged to put What Does the Bible Say, our school, on audio so that some people that don't have data, they can listen to What Does the Bible Say on their radio. Now, I was really hoping to be here at the top of the hour, but I'm not. So I'm not going to rush through this, but I am going to begin to do some application. Now, last week, we were in the cave with Elijah. And we were making the point, there's a bit of a review so that we can get to where I want us to be as we close out today. We were in the cave scene with Elijah. And, you know, most people just go on about denominational people, sectarian people. All they ever talk about is the small, still voice. And they say they heard God talk to them in that small, still voice too. Just get out of here with that. That has nothing to do with you. And what ended up happening is that God gives Elijah the outline for everything you're going to see all the way to 2 Kings chapter 9 and 10. And here it is. Arise, go down, meet, This is actually, I'm not going to go back into that. I'm going to prep for an introduction because I have already gone over this and I just now realized that I didn't want to go over it again. I want to go back to the scene where Elijah confronts Ahab after Ahab has killed Naboth. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, which is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, whether he is gone down to possess it. And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Hast thou killed and also taken possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, In the place where the dogs lick the blood of Naboth shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine. And Ahab said to Elijah, Hast thou found me, O my enemy? And he answered, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord. Now, after this, as a point of fact, Elijah, his discussion with Ahab actually caused Ahab to humble himself. And as a result of that humble not just that moment, but the humility that he went forward with for a bit, God said, you know what? I'm not going to bring all this to pass on Ahab, but I'm going to actually bring it to pass in his son's life, which would be Ahaziah. Behold, I will bring evil upon thee, and will take away thy posterity, and will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, and him that shut up left in Israel, and will make thine house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah, for the provocation wherewith thou hast provoked me to anger, and made Israel to sin. So again, is there anybody that isn't a candidate to be talked to? Not really. This is one of those situations where what he said to him caused a change in his life. But here's the thing that I want you to realize. Often when you're reading, we went through this last week, so you can go back to the class last week and get it really in detail, but it is the case that we don't pay attention to details, and one of the details that's happening right here is that somebody else is listening to this. And that somebody else is Jehu. And we learn this in 2 Kings chapter 9. That's 1 Kings 21:21. 2 Kings 9, you learn, and I'll tell you this also, I didn't come upon this myself necessarily. I don't remember when I read it, if I read it, but I know getting in the details right now is what made me see it. But I was reading in pulpit commentary the other day just to see if I could find other persons that had seen this, and it is in pulpit commentary. They basically get to this point and say that it is very clear that the text says that one of the captains of the host, which would be Jehu, and another captain were actually riding along with, didn't say in the chariot, with Ahab, and they heard Elijah make this proclamation. Elisha the prophet called one of the children of the prophets and said unto him, Gird up thy loins and take this box of oil in thy hand, go to Ramoth Gilead, and when thou comest thither, look out there Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, and go in, and make him rise up from among his brethren, and carry him to an inner chamber. Then take the box of oil and pour it on his head, and say, Thus saith the Lord, I have anointed thee king of Israel. Then open the door and flee and tarry not. This is conspiracy. You better get out of there. So the young man, even the young man, the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead, and when he came, behold, the captains of the host were sitting, and he said, I have an errand to thee, O captain. And Jehu said, Which of all of us? Which of all of us? Which of all us? And he said, To thee, O captain. And when he came, behold, the captain of the host were sitting, and he said, I have an errand to thee, O captain. And I'm reading that again. And he arose and went into the house, and he poured the oil on his head, and said unto him, Thus saith the God of Israel, I have anointed thee king over the people of the Lord, even over Israel, and thou shalt smite the house of Ahab thy master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants the prophets, and the blood of all the servants of the Lord at the hand of Jezebel. For the whole house of Ahab shall perish. Now, here's what I want to basically deal with. He tells some events that are going to prod the memory of Jehu later. And the dogs shall eat Jezebel in the portion of Jezreel, and there shall be none to bury her. And he opened the door, and he fled. Now, Jehu came forth to the servants of the Lord and said unto them, Is all well? Wherefore come this mad fellow? And he said unto them, You know this man and his communication. Basically, I think he's simply wondering if they already knew what it was that was said, because they were also with him when Elijah said what he said to Ahab. And just, I have no idea if it is the case that these other individuals had some premonition that eventually in their lifetime that they were going to see the destruction of Ahab's family. I mean, seriously, if you think about it, these captains were there, one of them for sure. They had heard Elijah say that Ahab's son, who is actually already, one of them already dead, and Jehoram is living now, that these sons were going to be the recipients of this prophecy. So it's not a stretch of imagination to think that they are waiting for something to happen in their lifetime, because Jehoram is still alive. And the proclamation is that Jehoram is going to die, and he's going to be thrown into the same plot where Naboth was put. And so he says, you know this man. You know the man, his communication. And they're saying, No, it's false. Tell us now. And he said, Thus saith the Lord to me, saying, Thus saith the Lord, I have anointed thee king over Israel. Then they hastened, took every man his garment, and put it under him on the top of the stairs, and blew with trumpets, saying, Jehu is king. Now, I'm looking at my time, so I hope I haven't lost you, because we're heading somewhere, and we're reading text together. And I expect that you would go back and you yourself would reread this. So Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. Don't forget, Jehoram is Joram. Now, Joram had kept Ramoth Gilead, he and all Israel, because of Hazael, the king of Syria. But King Joram was returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Syrians had given him when he fought with Hazael, king of Syria. And Jehu said, If it be in your minds, then let none go forth nor escape out of the city to go tell it in Jezreel. In other words, he's basically concocting his plan. He's been told that he is supposed to take care of this situation, the things that Elijah told Ahab that they heard told, now is given to him as his responsibility. He's concocting a plan, y'all. If Jehoram gets wind that he's coming with the plan to play out what Elijah had said to Ahab, which basically means he's going to die, then they're going to be waiting on it. So Jehu rode in his chariot, went to Jezreel, for Joram lay there, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, was come down to see Joram. Okay, I must slow down right here, because if we don't, you're never going to get this. Let's see here just a minute. I'm looking for my cursor. Let's see if I can find that. Oh, it should be down here. Hold on just a minute. There it is. Are you ready? My highlighter. And for some reason it doesn't want to work. Let's see if I can get out of that. I don't understand why that's not working. All right, I'm just going to leave my cursor there. Get this, y'all. Ahaziah, king of Judah, was come down to see Jehoram. I'm hoping and praying that I've done a good job. And, I know that sometimes it's like I have to backtrack for a minute and I have to work with my tool set. And can I just ask you to give me a break? I'm broadcasting at 9 p.m. on Sunday night, and then I've got other work to do. And last Wednesday, when I got through, it's 52 hours from Sunday to Wednesday night. So, it's not like this is my only thing to do. So I do have a bit of a hard time getting all this stuff done. And so I hope that you'll give me a break and say, man, this dude is hitting on it. And a lot of people are on vacation right now because it is Wednesday before Christmas, and we're still hitting on it. I'll be hitting on it at 11 p.m., 9 to 10, and driving home between 10 and 11 tonight. So just give me a break. Take a breath, and let's look at this. Don't miss it. So Jehu, and this is to you. I'm actually doing this because I'm about to make a application point to you that could turn you into a totally different kind of person. Jehu is on his way to see Jehoram. And it just so happens that Jehoram, the son of Ahab, is sick. He received a wound in a battle that he and Judah were involved in fighting the Syrians together, and he ended up receiving a wound. Now he's going to try to heal in Jezreel. And so here comes Jehu. And at the same time, Ahaziah, the king of Judah, right here, I wish my highlighter would work, came down to see Ahaziah would be the nephew of Jehoram. He's coming to see his uncle. Now remember, his mother is Athaliah, the wicked daughter of Jezebel. Can you see what's lining up here? You've got the wicked son of Athaliah. Athaliah is still on the scene too. Jezebel is still on the scene too. And Jehoram is the son of Ahab, and he's sick. Now, y'all, Jehoram has done some good things, but Jehoram has also been doing bad things along in here too. I mean, at one point, Elisha almost was himself at a point of being killed because of some things that he said to the king in regard to a famine that came along. And something that he actually had a proclamation. He made a proclamation about it, and all of a sudden they turned on him. So you have the wicked son of Ahab, who was basically for a while an individual that we might have had hope for. And those are good things. Those are good texts to read, because sometimes you get results when you try to work with somebody that nobody else will work with. Sometimes it doesn't work, but nevertheless, you saw them doing it. They were working with Jehoram. Now it's basically the time where Jehoram's fixing to be slain. Jehoram is sick. And it just so happens that Ahaziah is coming up to see his uncle. Now, what I hope is that you're like already ahead of me. So, Jehu is going to be in a position to actually reach into Jezreel without them knowing that he's coming. And the king who would mount up the army is actually sick. And Ahaziah, his nephew, is coming over to see him. And it puts all of them in the same vicinity as Jehu heads up. And there stood a watchman on the tower in Jezreel, and he spied the company of Jehu as he came, and he said, I see a company. And Jehoram said, take a horseman, send to meet them and let him say, is it peace? So they went out, one on horseback to meet him. We're looking at tactics here. And said, thus saith the king, is it peace? And Jehu said, what hast thou to do with peace? Turn thee behind me. What that means is, you don't go back and tell the king what he wants to know. You get behind me, and we're going to continue this cavalry run into Jezreel. Jehu said, what dost thou have to do with peace? Turn thee behind me. And the watchman told, saying, The messenger came to them, but he cometh not again. Send another. See how this is working? Man, the stuff that you can learn. But this is what I want to basically put in front of you. What if Jehu, and let's just stop for a minute. What made Jehu think that he could do this? He's captain of the host. What does that mean? It doesn't really mean anything. There are plenty of individuals that are in a position, a high up position, and if ever there was somebody that could turn the tide, it would be them, and they choose not to. Guys like Jason Rollo. If there was anybody that had influence in the brotherhood, it would be Jason Rollo. And he goes down to polishing the pulpit last year, and he's on with a bunch of guys that are sympathizers of OCU, ACU, Freed Hardeman, Pepperdine, the whole crowd. And even individuals that have been with people that have been on the Pepperdine lectureship and the ACU, OCU, and are associated with women preachers like Don McLaughlin's daughter. Could he not make something happen? Try to make something happen? In a high position, he may try to say that he's not in a high position, but he's in a high position. Other individuals that were at polishing the pulpit that could have said something, like B.J. Clark. B.J. Clark is the director of the largest preaching school in the Brotherhood. Does he do anything to change the tide? No. What are we saying here? Jehu, being the captain in a high position, doesn't mean anything necessarily unless he rises to the challenge. And you know what? You know what keeps people from rising to the challenge? Their own imagination. So what's going to happen if I step forward and say, you know what, I'm going to rise to this challenge and I'm going to try to make a difference, make a change, and do something about the liberalism that's in our brotherhood, the sympathizing with these false teachers that are just as rank as they can be. I'm going to put my hand to that plow. But their imagination says, who's going to listen to you? But instead, Jehu responds to the challenge, and I'm saying, look at what just so happened to be going on. That's the point that people just don't get. What happens when you reach, when you try? Well, when you try, it could just as easily be the case that the field is set for you to actually conquer, for your influence, your determination. Why? And when I say you, we're talking about God here. Well, if God wanted to do this, I have people telling me, well, if God wanted to do something about this, he would do it. No, God wants to do something about it, and he wants to use you. But the problem is there's not any yous. There's not any servants. There's not any individuals who will put their hand to it. A guy called 2 weeks ago and said, you know what, I'm going to be in a place where B.J. Clark's going to be. I will hand him the paper if I understood it, had it, and understood it. Well, Caleb was very, very busy at the time, and I told him about it. And he made a long trip to meet this young man and to demonstrate to him, you can do this. It's very simple. Facts. Well, this guy didn't say this guy's ready to give the facts, but I had another preacher who is very prominent in the brotherhood, and I was telling him about things that he could do, and he's like, I have to become friends with him and build a relationship. I can't just go up in there and him come think that I'm somebody that's, that doesn't even care about him. What? What part of you showing someone facts that would save their soul is you not caring? Let's take Steve Higginbotham, for instance. Steve Higginbotham had cancer. I hear that he's doing well. A friend of mine saw his son in Dayton, Tennessee, a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he is doing well. But when we were really pressing Steve Higginbotham, he had cancer, and it was serious. What better time to try to give him facts? We did give him facts. He's just not paying attention to them. But the person that I'm talking to is actually in a position where if you talk about leaning, Steve Higginbotham is leaning towards him. All you have to do is give him the facts. What are the facts? Well, the facts are what Steve Higginbotham already knows. That he, at Affirming the Faith lecture, North MacArthur Church of Christ in Oklahoma City, he has been with individuals that are known sympathizers of Pepperdine, ACU, OCU, Tulsa Workshop, you name it. And he did not say anything to those individuals, which means he does not love their souls enough to warn them about their behavior associating with all these known false teachers that are bringing in community churches onto the scene and already in fellowship with the Christian church. That's what that means. I'm not the bad guy here. These guys who sympathize go to these places and keep quiet. And we're talking about why they don't keep quiet right here. They don't think that they can do anything. Well, what you're really doing is you're saying God can't do anything. God has these facts. He has these commands. Ephesians 5:11. Let me just get this because I know there's students that are watching, and it's possibility that you don't know these passages, and that I know that the teachers that are in the preaching schools are not going to press them. Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. Reprove is found in Matthew 18:15, and it is simply translated, tell him his fault. Can you not tell someone their fault? Or that about them? What we're talking about doing is actually giving them the facts. Well, how do you do that? Man, if you were doing the faith lectures, North MacArthur Church of Christ, Oklahoma City, get on, look at the lectures, simply click on Jeremy Beller's name, and then you do a search, and it's just like this. Jeremy Beller, preacher, Church of Christ, and hit click, search. You will find out that Jeremy Beller is now on faculty at Oklahoma Christian. What does that mean? Jeremy Beller is in fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. Well, you don't know anything about Oklahoma Christian? Do your research. We will help you. You'll get my phone number and Caleb's phone number when the show goes off. So, why is it that Steve Higginbotham isn't doing that? Well, I don't know why. You know, I questioned before if Steve Higginbotham had a really good handle on fellowship. His daddy's name was Frank Higginbotham. I'm saying, man, I knew Frank Higginbotham. And people up in the Parkersburg, West Virginia, Moundsville, West Virginia, and on north, they know about fellowship. And Steve knows about fellowship. As a matter of fact, I heard he wrote a book in which he actually parses fellowship. Fellowship with your family members. And he actually came down on the right place. But he himself will not stop fellowshipping individuals that, as we said, are involved with actually the furtherance, sympathizing with the community church, the Christian church, all manner of false teaching on the lectureships that I was mentioning, at the universities that I was mentioning. Okay. What are we saying here at this point? We're saying to you, what if Jehu had not realized or accepted that God was going to use him? Look at this field. I'm telling you, it is lined up like dominoes. And do you know what Jehu did? You read the text and you come back and tell me next week, or you get ready to dig into it next week. 2 Kings, chapter 9, a man who tries, and a scene that's set, and eradication of a major, major plot to destroy the seed line of the kingdom of Judah. What was God waiting on? Can you be a Jehu? Well, I don't know. I think there's a lot of you out there that are already Jehus in some respect. Well, what does that mean? When they finally realized that their watchmen weren't coming back, you know what they said? His driving is like Jehu. He's driving furiously. So you've already got some of the traits of Jehu, and you just don't use them in the right way. Can you drive like Jehu? Well, can you do other things that Jehu did, which is simply say that I'm going to try? It could be that the field is set already, that just needs a man or a woman of action who will say things. You know, I have gotten so much good news this week, and there's so many of you out there that are doing things just like this. God bless you. I won't call your name, but I'm just saying God bless you for the things that you try to do, because God is waiting to use the efforts that we make in a tremendous way. And there's any one of you that may be the next Jehu. God bless you. Appreciate you for being with us in our school. Caleb will be with us next week, I expect, and I hope to be able to do a broadcast on another day. And we continue our study together and tell someone about What Does the Bible Say School, and I hope to see you tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern on What Does the Bible Say. God bless you. Good evening.